50% of this is poop.
Welcome to another episode of the Buffalo Game Space podcast. I'm Greg Giles.
I'm Noah Pfeiffer.
John Futscher.
Ryan Mckee.
Kendall Priebe.
Greg Giles. Oh. And we've been playing video games. Well, some of us.
We have been?
Yeah, you were not
Maybe.
included in that. I didn't know how to take you out. But first, we want to talk about a game like none of us has played, which is...
So nobody has played.
Nobody's played, really, is Cuphead, which this week there was a new trailer put out. I haven't seen the trailer. I know what the game looks like, and I know what some of the complaints were and are no longer.
Right, so what they did this week wasn't necessarily put out a new trailer, is they actually put out a gameplay footage.
Okay.
They actually showed some of a level being played. And that's what has kind of calmed some of the outcry, or no, outcry is the wrong word.
Reservations.
The reservations that people had, because Cuphead has a lot of people really hyped about it because they, if you don't unaware of the game, they basically have decided to go back to the old like hand-drawn celluloid like Disney from the 40s
Like
style.
think like racist like old cartoons like that were in black and white and have been colorized, and like that's basically the aesthetic.
Except not racist anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna say, have they been
I don't know. We'll
de-racist?
see.
Time will tell. I don't know. Nobody knows enough about.
Maybe they got really carried away.
That would be like the ultimate bummer, right? They have this beautiful art style, and everybody's like, "Wow, look at this art they pulled off," and it's just like hyper offensive, like super antiquated, like
this game
thoughts.
hates minorities.
And it's like, oh my god, no!
Like talking about
I can't
Aryan
enjoy
race.
this at all. Damn it!
Cuphead sounds like a racial slur, even.
Yeah, it does. It sounds like
Hey, Cuphead.
You can make
fucking
you can make
Cuphead.
anything sound like a racial slur, though. You're like, "Hey, Twinkie, come over here."
Oh my god.
That's not-
I think you need to stop because
Soon we're
just
gonna
stop.
get there.
See, I told you though.
But I think that's a thing.
Yeah.
So
That is not a thing.
Oh my god.
Okay. None of
Edit
us.
him out and,
Moving on.
and let him go look up the Urban Dictionary.
Yeah.
Before he opens his damn mouth again.
Yeah.
Filthy bigot.
He like is back in the room, just silent and doesn't speak for the rest of the podcast.
Yeah.
Pulling out my phone.
So,
Done.
actually, Tosh did a bit about that where they just made up things that were legitimately just made up words and presented them to a panel of people to see if they thought they were offensive, and they couldn't come up with anything that everybody agreed was not offensive. At some point, some people would come up
Yeah.
with an idea of how they were related to something
Yeah.
offensive, and they're just like, it was just like, wow, like look what the gymnastics people came up with.
Yeah, for real.
Damn.
So anyway, so Cuphead hopefully isn't racist, but it comes from the era of like beginning of motion pictures, like hand drawn on cells animation, like think Steamboat Willie style, like
Yeah.
original, like blew people's minds with the fact that it was even just like a cartoon. It wasn't something real, and it was up on the screen and it was moving. And they've taken it to that aesthetic and just completely ran with it and hired a huge team of awesome animators to make this really beautiful looking game. And so that had a lot of people hyped. However, art is only one part of a game. And so everybody had really big reservations of, okay, that looks pretty. What the hell do you do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're making like a hand-drawn movie, that's great, but you're making a game. So how do you actually play the game? What the
Right.
hell actually happens? How is this interesting? Why do I care?
I heard that from a lot of people. I hadn't really looked into it much, but a lot of people were saying they were like exceptionally unimpressed in their speculation of how this game looked like it played.
Yeah.
Isn't it supposed to be like a 2D like platformer side scroller thing?
Right. So that was kind of the idea, but it was almost looked like a shooter, almost like a Contra-ish, like where like you could run around and jump and you could shoot in every direction, like in 8 ways, kind of harkening back to that. And the only footage they'd really shown before was kind of boss fights and things that had like really big, cool, beautiful looking things on screen. But everyone's like, so I hope it doesn't play boring, and it sucks.
Which is really like most of the time when you get a game that does what they're doing visually, I'd say most of the time it falls flat in a lot of other ways.
Right,
So
because
it's-
people look at the beauty of it and they're like,
Right.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
But how does it actually play?
especially when you're just showing screenshots and stuff, like you can really you can kind of get away with it.
Right. So they put out what is essentially a gameplay of a level, and there's pretty tight platforming elements. The screen is pretty active and full of enemies and different things. A lot of it seems pretty kind of repetitive, but in combinations, and it actually looks pretty tight and potentially fun to play. And it's for the first time a lot of people who are just like, this game looks pretty, but might be boring as hell. We're kind of like, okay, this could actually be cool. It could be a fun game to play, and it looks pretty. So, like, that's, even better. But who knows? I mean, what I saw was really just more assuaging my fears as opposed to getting me hyped. Like, when I saw it, I was like, cool, that looks like a good game.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't necessarily mean, like, I'm going to go play it the second I get a chance.
No. Yeah, I do want to play it. And I guess we should have maybe expected the gameplay would come along like this because it's been in development for a long...
The sheer amount of content they're talking about doing, as somebody who's looked into doing hand-drawn animation for a game in my past and ran the numbers and was just like, holy shit, I need 83,691 frames of hand-drawn animation to pull off this concept that I want, and be like, holy hell, like, how is that even possible?
Yeah.
And so they have a giant team cranking, and even with that, I mean, these things take a massive amount of time. That's why you don't see a lot of it. It's really time intensive, and as relates to anything in development, if it's time intensive, that means it's cost intensive, because you're basically hiring people to work full time for a long period of time, and that's going to be your major cost. So I don't know how they're being funded exactly, or like who's behind this whole thing, but they got to have pretty deep pockets to put together the animation team that they have alone. Even though, the gameplay needs to be tight and fast, but for a basic platformer, you don't need, 80 people in a, some kind of crazy sweatshop scenario. A small programming team can pull that off, but the art style, I have no idea how they're putting together that much content purely just on time.
Has the developer team done anything recently that we might know?
I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
I don't know either. Sorry, I was just looking to see if they had done a Kickstarter, which I don't think they did.
Did they say themselves that they are doing every single frame hand-drawn?
Pretty much. I mean, I'm sure they're using tools to animate, most things, but they did say that they were actually, drawing on celluloid. Like, that's how they're getting that look. They're actually drawing on transparent film pieces and then composing the scene out of it, where they're, like, laying those on top of each other.
Yeah, it kind of creates a really, like, almost surreal aesthetic. Like, it looks so much like the cartoon that you don't even quite register that it's a game when you see it. Like, it's weird, but in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, it lends itself to a very unique aesthetic where you can recognize, a pixel art game looks the way it does. You see it reads game, and you can tell the way that it moves. Whereas with a hand-drawn thing, there's no real bounds. Like, anything can, like, expand or contract into, like, any shape, and it's kind of a very unique look. And I'm interested to see how they actually apply some of the under-the-hood stuff. Like, so you have bosses that can kind of expand and contract very naturally into open space on the scene. How do you handle physics on all of that? Like, how do you handle collision detection? And my guess is that they're just really simplifying it. There's only, like, certain areas of any type of character that's interactable, and everything else is just kind of visual sugar. Mm-hmm. But the under the hood would probably just be a lot of sphere or circle colliders and basic bounding boxes.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. But I don't really know anything else enough to add anything more than what I've said about that game.
All right, so Cuphead could be fun, could be racist. Time will tell.
Right.
Hopefully not.
I think that's what we all got out of this. What else? What's everybody been playing?
Overwatch.
Yeah.
Yep.
In the very small amount of time I've been getting to play anything recently, I've been playing Overwatch here and there, and that's one of the things I really like about the game is the fact that I can play it in like a half-hour burst.
Yeah.
Like, before I go to bed, I can just like fire it up.
I don't know how you play that game.
I can play like 3 rounds. 3 rounds in like a half an hour, and then just like, all right, cool. I got to play some games, and I'm going to go to sleep now.
Yeah. We were having a really good conversation about it this week, I think, in the context of esports and how that might play out.
Yeah, so one of the thoughts, and I was kind of post it to the room to see what you guys kind of think on this, but somebody wrote some really interesting thoughts about Overwatch and its playtime. So if you're unfamiliar with Overwatch, it's basically 6v6. It's a shooter, a class-based shooter that has 20 to 1 different characters. It owes a lot to MOBAs as well as games like Team Fortress 2. And if you think of like mashing Dota and Team Fortress together, you kind of get Overwatch.
Yeah.
It's oversimplifying it, but for a quick snap picture, that's a pretty good way to put it. The games usually only take about 10 minutes, like max, to play around. And you could even lose or win in like 2 minutes if your team just crushes it and like stops the other team dead, like right at the beginning of the game. You can just win in like 2 minutes. So it lends itself to really kind of quick replays and lots of different rounds and iterations. It's not like playing Dota or even like League, where like the games can stretch out over the course of an hour.
There's
even
minimal garbage time.
Yeah. Once a team has basically established victory in Overwatch, they get a victory and it's over and you move on. As opposed to like
there's no like comeback and then fall, like Dota will swing back and forth. There'll be like a sick comeback and then they'll lose the comeback, but then they'll come back and you're just like, oh my god, no time for that in Overwatch.
No, so like if Dota is kind of like soccer, where it's like it doesn't look like a lot's happening, but like people who really appreciate the game can kind of see the finer points, and it plays out over the course of hours, and you don't even quite know when it's going to end because they don't even keep track of time like on the screen because they're stupid. That's like soccer. Like Overwatch is more like basketball, where it's like really it's easy to score quick points, and in one team being better than another team really only shows itself in aggregate. Like if one team really shuts down another team on one map and one mode as like the attacker, they might get smoked on defense, or they might get smoked on a different map, or when the team composition changes, or the other team adjusts to how they play and they pick different counter characters. That advantage is gone in an instant, and it's not so much, it doesn't play out over the course of an hour. It's these things happen over the course of seconds or minutes. And because of those kind of potential for quick swings and potential for like changes in strategy, like on the fly, Overwatch has a potential to be a very popular esport. In the sense that the people that don't want to watch an hour-long kind of setup, but they could watch like the finals of Overwatch and understand and see these really kind of quick points being scored. People are always scoring, people are always winning, always losing, kind of like in basketball where like there's a team that's both teams are always scoring in basketball. You never see a game where it's like 99-0. Like that doesn't exist in basketball. Like the other team, even if you're losing, you're still scoring points. So there's a lot of scoring, and so each individual basket doesn't necessarily matter until kind of like in the aggregate towards the end of the game. You'll see one team that's slightly outscoring the other one has a lead. And then then the points become tight, and then it leads to like a big kind of finishes. And Overwatch could feel the same way if you're playing like a best of 5 tournament or like best of 10. Like one team could win a few, the other team could win a few. There's no kind of clear winner, but one kind of takes a lead, and then it can have some really intense implications for a final match that could only last 2 minutes, but like everything's on that final match because of how tightly everything else has been played. That could lend itself to some really kind of incredible moments that you see sometimes in like fighting games because they're really quick. And, the final match of the final round of the final day or whatever. You watch that and like it's all on the line in like what is essentially like normally a 30-second round. And it's like now the stakes are so high because everything else has been played up to that point where it becomes really intense, and those videos get millions of views because everybody can appreciate the bottom of the ninth scenario. That doesn't happen unless you have like that lead in.
Also, another thing about that format that kind of I think makes the spectator aspect really potentially strong and I guess big is that because they're so short. Again, I'm always, I guess Dota. I'm going to go to Dota a lot because it's just what I know. In Dota, you walk in, like you come into a match like 20 minutes in, you don't really know what's going on and where people are coming from and where the game is going. Overwatch, I mean, you can come in the middle of a match and maybe not know that, but the match is over in 2 minutes. Next match starts, and everybody's back at zero. That's watching it.
And a lot of matches have like sub matches. Like there's like checkpoint to checkpoint. Like you could come into the middle of a match of like a payload mission. And the attacking team could be moving the payload between checkpoint 2 and 3. The game really exists until that checkpoint is reached or not reached.
You think it's that? You think they've like the gameplay is that sort of moment to moment isolated?
It's that readable if you came in late, because there's actually there's actually a timeline basically at the top of the screen that tells you, like, you're halfway between like checkpoint 2 and 3. That's all you really need to know to pick up like where the progress of the game is, and you can see if it's being advanced or if it's being stopped, and that can all swing within 15-20 seconds.
Also,
and so then you're kind of caught up on what's happening. Whatever happened up to that point, it doesn't matter. How'd they get to halfway through checkpoint 2 and 3? Doesn't matter. They got that far.
And if the game is going, it's probably even, because like we said, the game doesn't allow for an imbalance for too long. They call it pretty quickly. So if the game is running, you can assume that it's even, unless it's clearly about to end.
Yeah. Because I have watched a lot of Smite, and like I haven't played the game myself, but I've learned a lot just from watching it. Like I feel like those games tend to be about half an hour, which is sort of long for like if you want to sit down and watch it. But you come in the middle and like you can see like, okay, like this team has like this tower and the other team has got like the 2 towers and the Phoenix, and like you can sort of tell like some things about like how the game is going, but like that's a game where like you can have like major turnarounds. And I've seen matches where like one team is about to win, they've like got like the Phoenix down and they're like working on like the what is it called at the end? I don't remember. But then the other team like kills all their players, and while they're on respawn they go and like they take down their towers and their Phoenix, and then it's even again. So it's like, oh shit, So
and then if it plays back from there, I mean, that could really stretch it out.
Yeah,
the Overwatch equivalent of that is like if one team was about to like reach a checkpoint with the payload, and the D just puts up a wall and stops them right before it.
Yeah, like
and they wipe the team, and everybody's on respawn, and they come back, and they push it back a little bit. If they hold there, the game is over in a minute.
Yeah,
like from then, if they hold strong there for like 60 seconds, they win. Like period, like round over.
And you said that it happened to you one time where the other team was like about to get the payload to the end, and you guys like just stopped it, and then it ended. But I mean, like I think that's
a
kind
way
of
to put it. Like it was really kind of intense match. It's like, you stopped it, and then
I don't play this game. Okay.
Those are like the best times though. Like everyone decides like, everyone's they're about to get the payload. Okay, well I'm gonna have 2 bastions, and I'm gonna have Lucio that's healing them, and I'm gonna have a Reinhardt blocking the 2 bastions, and you can't do anything.
Well, then the other team responds to that. Like if there's time, that's like like you said, you switch to those other characters to try to put up a D wall. There's counters to those characters.
Yeah, and I kind of like that, like hearing that about the game, like being able to switch and like.
And it makes a massive turn. That game, that one round in particular that I had mentioned, where they were like they were on the goal line and about to beat us, and we basically kind of wiped their team like almost at the last second and started pushing it back. Everybody on my team switched character. Like every single person, like who was playing like one character throughout. Everybody picked somebody else, and we just had a completely new team composition. So when they came back to get the payload, all of a sudden they're fighting 6 different people that they've been fighting and beating this whole time. Yeah. Now they're fighting a completely different crew, and we jumped right into our new roles, and they didn't know how to respond to it. And we won.
And that's definitely one of the drawbacks of Smite is like if you pick a character and like the other team's composition is such that you can't do anything with that character, you're stuck with it for a whole half an hour.
Yeah, and that's one of and we've been talking about that quite a bit. Of just like one of the interesting things about Overwatch is the kind of meta game that kind of goes on, where the characters you choose are responses to what you're up against, right? Like a good team will respond to what's lacking on their squad. If they're like, all right, we keep getting wiped, we need a healer, like, and somebody jumps on healer and somebody jumps on like Reinhardt to throw up some D to give some extra damage protection, then you start moving. Or we can't get rid of these damn Lucios or whatever, or Roadhogs, and we need somebody who can do burst damage. You get some DPS characters out there, and you can start knocking them down.
It reminds me a lot of like fencing, where like you see that one person is doing like a certain parry every single time, so you start doing like other moves to sort of get around that.
It's kind of like in a sense, it's like a fighting game shooter. And what I mean by that is you start learning on the things that the other team is doing, and then you exploit them. So because like I watch like Super Smash Brothers competitively, and the whole point of it that they say is you can't be too predictable, because if you are, then you can be countered very easily. So that's the same thing with That's why I'm thinking like with Overwatch, because you can start like, yeah, you can have these heroes, they're gonna get countered, but if you don't switch to counter their counter, then you're gonna lose.
Yeah, no, and that's what when I say good teams respond like that. Like the teams that I play with, like when I'm playing with friends and like we're all in like a voice chat, it's like we're getting murdered. Like I'm switching to Lucio, you switch to Bastion, you switch, and everybody's like,
And then
cool.
I'm like, what's the rollerblade guy? Which one is he?
Yeah,
like
I was
him.
like,
I'm gonna be him.
yeah. So and everybody's like, cool, got it, and like everybody just kind of just does it and plays
Yeah.
together, and like and they're in it to play different roles or whatever. Every once in a while, you come across the guy who's just like, I only play this one character. Go screw. It's like, yeah, well, he's the wrong character for the people we're fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's my guy, so I'm gonna be him.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, thanks for making us lose, jerk.
Yeah. See, but I'm sort of sympathetic to that, because if you want to get good with a character, you need to play him always, and especially in situations where you're like underpowered in the circumstances, because then when you're even or have the advantage, then you're really crushing, you know.
Well,
but
to a point, because I think what I've seen in the game is that the teams that win are teams.
Yeah, they work
Like
together.
if you have like really good players who
Yes.
are really good with their characters and they don't give a shit about anybody else on their team or the objective, they
Right.
lose every single fucking time.
and I'm saying
Every time.
right? And I'm saying if I'm trying to get better, I accept that. Like you go into a game, and you're like,
I'm gonna lose
fucked,
'cause
but
I'm
you
gonna-
just got to do it anyways, because that's how you get better.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, 100%. You're also right, but I also get really irritated though at the same time when my teammates, and it's hard for me to actually do that. I rarely will do that in the face, you know, despite.
I totally get what you're saying,
Yeah.
and I guess what I was saying, like in a lot of other games, I would be like completely right. You're completely right, and especially in something like a fighting game, right, where
Yeah.
what people specialize in characters for a reason, because they get really good at them. They get like frame perfect at like, I know exactly how to throw this move at this exact time. I know how to combo like this move into this move, which other people can't do because they're not like intimately aware. They don't have the muscle memory to pull off some crazy combination of attacks like together. So in a game, something like a fighting game, you kind of almost have to specialize to get that good. And I guess what I'm trying to get at, and one of the things I find really interesting about Overwatch directly, is that I feel like the best people at Overwatch are the people who can play a lot of different characters effectively.
Yeah.
It's not that like I'm the best sniper you've ever seen, so I'm going to snipe every round and we're going to win because I'm an awesome sniper. That doesn't work in Overwatch at all.
Yeah.
No,
if the
it
other
doesn't.
team knows how to counter a sniper, the fact that you're good at that character means nothing to us as a team.
No, it doesn't.
You're good at the game when you know how to, like, I've got 6 characters that I'm effective with.
Yeah.
And like I know 2 support guys, I know 2 D guys, I know 2 tanks and 2 offensive people that
But
I
the
can
way
switch
you get to know those guys
is by switching to all them different ones
I
and
mean,
finding out where you're good at them.
That's one way to do it, but I mean, I'm telling you, like, you have to fight in unfavorable situations to think about your character differently and really get to know what you can do and what you really can't
Right,
do.
I'm completely with you. I just want to, for Overwatch, I resist the idea of like your character, right? Like your character should be as many characters as you can bring to
Yes,
the table.
and I agree, but like one of the ways that you can do that is you
Get
pick
there.
a guy, and then next week you're a different guy for all the losing matches that you did.
It's only been out for like 2 weeks. There's 21 characters.
So you're on character 2. No, and I mean, like, I totally get where you're coming from, and I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, I know. I'm
but
not,
like, I feel like
A third opinion, maybe.
well, yeah, I mean, sort of, not really, but sort of. Again, haven't played the game, so
Let's just talk about your opinion. Don't ever give it.
it's different. It's better.
Yeah, it's there.
It's right.
It's right. It exists. It's better. It's the best. I'm telling you, it's
like,
the best opinions.
I feel like with what you're talking about, sort of, like you play a character and you're trying to stick with that character until like it gets to the point where you're like, okay, this is the limit of this character, and you have to like be able to recognize that, and then you do what you're saying and you switch over to another character that you're trying to work on. So you could be like, okay, so I want to work on this character.
But there's no limits, you know.
Well,
like,
but you're saying like the limit of like where the character becomes ineffective against the other team.
Yeah. I mean, like that's what you're saying, that you find the limitations and then you switch, right? Yeah.
And then,
I mean,
then that helps you get better at both of those characters that you're doing. It has both of those things.
it can. Yeah. These are different approaches. They're all valid.
Yeah.
You know.
But
Very diplomatic. Like everybody's a winner here, guys.
Well, I just want to stop hearing your wrong idea.
You're an idiot. We need you to
Stop looking at me. Stop staring at me and telling me you're like you're wrong or something.
But no, but what I was gonna say is that you are both right in a sense, because I do play Overwatch a lot. But if anyone said, hey, who's your favorite hero, it's usually the one that you could say is your best one, as in like you're best at this role with this character. So I can say I am the best with Roadhog. I like Roadhog a lot. But also, from what you're saying, you do have to realize that, hey, maybe Roadhog isn't doing good against this Mckee, so I have to switch so I don't keep getting killed.
It's kind of like running with weights on your feet or something, you know? That's kind of how I think about it. Or like in like a basketball movie, I always do the montage and the guy's like playing in the rain. Like, you never play basketball in the rain, right? But like,
Look at this guy. He's out there. It's raining out there,
but
guys.
you're sitting there
Go
and you're
inside.
like,
Look at
he's
these
gonna be
crazy.
so good because he can fucking play in the rain. Think about when he goes on the court, you know? And that's
It's kind of like sprinters where they like wear weight belts in training and then they take them off for
right, exactly. That's and I think it sucks for everybody else. It even really sucks for you most of the time. But
See,
It's not training.
I have
at that
some
point.
sympathy. What do you
Like,
mean?
you're in the game at that point.
yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah.
You took the words out of my mouth. What I was about to say. It's
Oh,
like,
That's
you
not
guys-
fun.
like you're talking about
right.
training, and we're talking about playing the game.
Does Overwatch have?
Well, you can't separate those things.
Does
Well, you can
Overwatch
totally
have a
go play
kind of-
AI by yourself
Yeah.
if you just want to get really good with a character,
Okay,
and,
okay.
and not subject your
But
team
that's
to
not-
getting
still
smoked
not
because
the
you refuse
same.
to switch.
It's still not the same, but neither is playing in the rain. So I don't know. Go ahead.
And that's what I was
He's
gonna
out there by
ask.
himself. That's not a game.
With his
He's not ruining it for his team. Sorry.
Because I was going to ask, like, I know Smite has a sort of mode where you can jump in either against AI or like with a friend and just like practice characters against each other. And I was wondering if, and you said Overwatch has like a thing.
Oh,
where
absolutely.
You can, play
You
AI.
can make custom games where you
Yeah.
can actually set your own rules, like
Yeah.
your own cooldowns. And
Yeah.
whatnot. You can play them against bots. You can make it a team, so it's like the four of us, and plus 2 CPU are playing against 6 bots. Like you can set those games up.
Yeah, and that might be like a way is for what you're saying to like sort of
And
practice, and it definitely isn't the same as playing against other people.
It's not,
but it's a way to.
It is, and it's what I do. That also that scenario works best when you don't play a character at all. So like in Dota, one of my best heroes is Puck, but he's extremely tricky. But that's what makes him good. He has low hit points, but he can kind of jump around and dodge and. But if you hit him like 2 times, you're gonna kill him. But so there's a really high skill thing. So I didn't. Maybe the first 2 times I played Puck, I went in and just got my team just hated me, and I just like died a lot. And then I was like, okay, clearly I need to work on my chops. So I took it to AI, and I just played AI until I could competently do all the fancy moves, and then I went back into a game. So there's definitely, but I see that strategy as when you start a hero, and then there's a point where, like I said, there's no limits. Every game helps you no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
But I think there's a point where you're going to be learning more playing with other players wrongly, I guess,
Yeah.
than playing
Yeah.
against AI.
I mean, going back to fencing, because, that's my sport. Like, one of the things that we did is, like, we'd have months of practice, and then they're like, okay, well, we're going to throw you into a tournament. And, like, we got completely crushed, but it was such a learning experience.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, there's no way to get a lot better at anything until you're kind of dropped into it and have to do it at a certain level.
Yeah.
So I completely get all that, and I get the training aspect and all that. I guess all I was kind of aiming at was
you can't be, like, a one-trick pony.
right. So in Dota, when you start the match and the game starts, you can't switch your character.
Nope.
So that's the difference, 100%. So once the game starts, you can't then you're locked into your character. So you're kind of, depending on the other team's composition and your skill level with certain characters, you pick the best possible one that you can bring to bear when the game starts.
Right.
But once it starts, and that's it. So you better have picked your best guy and for the best counter for what you're up against. And so you're locked in. So you better be really good with that guy, right? Overwatch is a very different game in the sense that, just like we've been discussing, kind of the meta game is that the teams that win are the ones that can adapt. And the fact that you can change your character on the fly always is that the best players that make up the best teams are the people that are willing to respond to the changing battlefield at any given moment.
Yeah.
And it's so if you're moderately successful with 10 different characters, you're much more of an asset than somebody who's an amazing sniper or like has a one-trick pony who might not be useful in this round.
And I understand what you're saying. What I mean is like, okay, yes, that you will never not, like, you can't be good at Overwatch if you don't switch, period. Like, we all agree on that. What I'm saying is, okay, say, fuck, I don't know the characters' names, so this is going to be tough. Say, give me some characters' names.
Characters are...
Give me 2 names. It doesn't even matter who they are.
Roadhog and Lucio.
Okay, so say you're playing
we already talked
Lucio,
about.
and then all of a sudden, you're like, oh, this is a Roadhog situation, which I don't think you would ever do because they're like, that's going support to like something else, which probably isn't how you do it. But, right, like, so you're like, okay, this is a Roadhog situation. Then you go to Roadhog. But because you played Roadhog for like 2 weeks against his like counters, when you go to Roadhog in a normal situation, you're going to fucking crush it, or you're going to be poised to crush it. You know what I mean? So like, to me, there's like it's easier to differentiate this thing in Dota because Dota, and maybe Overwatch does, I don't know, Dota has an unranked and a ranked mode. So you would just kind of like, in unranked, you would play like that. You wouldn't do that in a ranked game. So there's like showtime, right? Like you play like that, you play kind of stupid, but you're not really trying to win. You're just trying to like do drills, or you're just trying to get better for like showtime, the games that you go to and you're like, I want to win these games. And then you've got stupid stuff behind you that made you better.
Yeah, I feel like Futscher talking about like the end, and Greg's talking about the
that's exactly what's happening.
Totally.
That's
I mean, I'm
100%.
talking about like, you know, helping your team win, period, and you're talking about getting better at the game personally.
Yeah.
And those are 2 different things.
They are.
So,
Very.
How does Overwatch handle spectate?
So that's an interesting thing that they've been working on, and I'm interested to see how they actually set this up, because I'm sure they're going to bring to bear some pretty solid spectating tools, because right now it's pretty much just, you know, like Twitch streaming, people watching people through their own first-person view. I will not be shocked even in the slightest if they had some type of, you know, clip-free camera or like some kind of a spectator mode, like ghost modes and whatnot.
Yeah, they will.
Because right now you can actually spectate on any game. If you have like friends in the game, you can like jump in, and if like the game's full, you can watch them play in like third person. You can like switch through whoever's playing.
Yeah,
and
I did that. I watched you and
from
Ryan
a third
playing.
person view, you can see what's going on, and you can move your camera around relative to
Kinda
what
like
they can
TF2.
see. Yeah. So
Okay. I've always like had a hard time with team-based games like that, as far as spectating goes, because it's so hard to like keep focus on what's happening and make sense of it. Like games, I think Dota's a little bit better for it, because like you have the thing, the towers, what do you call them?
Yeah, the towers.
Towers
yeah.
that you're trying to get,
which
or
are
like-
sort of like where the action.
Yeah, you
tends
know
to,
where to focus,
Right.
but it's so much harder in games like Overwatch or TF2. I think.
I think.
Like payload, I think it works a bit.
Yeah, you have
but
a good point.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, no, because I never even realized that, and I was like, yeah, because I would be interested in watching like competitive, pro players playing Overwatch, but how, in a sense, would they do that? Because there's going to be 6 different screens on each side, and there's going to be 12 different players.
Well, you just watch from outside. You just like
that's a spectating
fly above
tools.
everybody,
They're-
and you
they're
look
totally
down like
gonna be-
Dota. It would be like take a Dota view, and
Yeah.
that's how you would watch Overwatch, probably. I mean, not for example.
Would you say you would Overwatch?
Oh God. That was pretty solid. I'm not gonna lie. Another thing I was thinking, I think about esports a lot because it's an inevitable thing to me, and I'm just sort of waiting for them to go mainstream, just because I just know it will eventually. And so I look at Overwatch. I'm like, are you the one that's gonna do it? Because nobody's done it quite yet. There hasn't been that game, and I think Rocket League's got a good shot at it, but I think Overwatch also does, because for a lot of the reasons we've already discussed in terms of its sort of bite-sizedness and easy to digestibility.
Not to mention it's aesthetically very pleasing.
And that's the thing, like the one, it's aesthetically pleasing, and it has these characters, and that's what I see people latching onto that they can't latch onto in Rocket League. Nobody gives a fuck about, like, you can't associate your identity with like this car. It's harder to, and I think with these characters, I think people will feel more like I said, apart or like project themselves on and really latch onto these characters. And you know, when you have a match, you can put the characters up and they look all cool. You can't just like put some cars up. Like
yeah, they put up like they got the heroic poses. Like when you have victory,
exactly.
it does like the team shot.
Right, exactly.
The fact that it also they already have like the algorithm for the play of the game.
Mm-hmm.
They also have the voting like for the cards for like people to like at the recognition at the end of the game. They do the play of the game. Then they have 4 cards that pop up and it's like here's like 4 notable stats of the game. And it's like this person did this person did this person healed like this amount, and everybody gets 1 upvote who was in the game to like pick somebody like give this person a thumbs up. That is perfectly primed for Twitch or like viewing. You could open that up to the spectators and let them give people thumbs ups.
You're right.
And like
think about that.
I've definitely been thinking about that. It's like it's definitely like a perfect like setup for and people love that kind of style.
You think that's intentional?
I don't know if they realized what they did, but I gotta imagine they did.
Yeah.
That when it's when the round is over, they could have like the players kind of thumbs ups versus like the spectators thought. Widowmaker did a good job, and like each character gets their own kind of. You could get really popular players with popular characters, and people would kind of it would be a nice way to see what people thought was interesting and recognize it. And
I think you're right,
and a little bit of interactivity to watching it. It's like you don't necessarily get to like watch like a basketball game and be like, LeBron did great tonight. I give him an upvote, and everybody else is like, screw LeBron, downvote. It's like it's not like the Reddit style of watching sports. But
you can
they
do it
totally
outside,
have that baked into the game.
Yeah, there's no sport that inside the sport as it's happening you can do that. Like you can of course go to a forum and talk about it and stuff, but it's not inside. Like you're not interacting with the event, which you can do. But I think that's just a very, very nice coincidence for them. I think that system was just really designed to combat toxicity and encourage players to treat each other well and play
characters that aren't necessarily going to win play of the game, which I think is great. Like the support characters or like the tank characters. Like when somebody plays Reinhardt and they're putting up a shield for their team and they're the reason their team isn't dying all the time. Yeah, and they're not at the top of the leaderboards because they didn't get all these kills. They're the reason their team won. Yeah, they deserve credit.
And we talked about this a lot last podcast with like healer characters, where like they're doing so much, but they don't get the kills because their character either can't get kills or because they're focusing on helping.
And it's funny because you already see it in some of the community where like people who play like the healers or whatever, like they get shit from some people who are just stupid, being like, "Noob Mercy, what 0 kills? Like, good for you. You didn't help the team at all. Like, you idiot. The only reason you got any kills is because I made sure you didn't die."
Yeah. On top of that, you can always blame the healer for not healing well, which is a completely immeasurable, opaque like process where it's like because it's so situational. Like you could you could do all the healing in the game, but if you didn't do it at the right time, it doesn't matter, right? So or you could do the least healing in the game, but you did it all at the right time.
Or you get some clown who's like playing Hanzo, like somewhere like a mile away from the objective on the map, just trying to snipe people playing deathmatch, and he's like, "I need heals, I need heals," and it's like, and the Mercy's like flying around the freaking objective, healing everybody who's like winning the game for their team. They're like, "I can't heal you, dude. Like, do something useful, and I'll be there."
Yeah,
get in the fight, please. Thank you.
So it's a great system that they have out there for like in-game like player-to-player recognition that I think is just immediately extensible to the public.
I'm actually like really stunned by that system now that I think about how like just all the facets,
just blow your mind.
The robustness. Well, I mean like it's such a like unglamorous feature from a design perspective. It's not flashy or anything, but it has a huge impact on that game very positively, like in ways that
and the fact that there's no downvote.
Yeah.
Which I think is really important. It's not just like
Overwatch and the Buffalo, New York subreddit, no downvotes.
It's like somebody who played Bastion, and it's like 32 eliminations. It's like downvote.
That guy sucked. Killed me.
And this podcast is going to turn into hating on Bastion again.
Bastion.
I honestly,
so I played him. Oh yeah, I played him. He's so boring.
Yeah,
I didn't get any kills with him. I didn't even care. I didn't want to get kills with him.
And I don't want to just fall down that rabbit hole again. I'm just going to sum it up that I really, really liked that article, and it verbalized some of the thoughts that I was having internally. I'm about to say, it's like basically a guy wrote an article that said because people are complaining about Bastion being overpowered, and I think it's partially because he wins play of a game a lot because all he has to do is basically sit still and cut people down, and And so he gets lots of play of the games just because it counts for a lot of points, and the algorithm doesn't take that out.
Yeah.
And so people see that a lot, and they're like, he's overpowered. And basically, a guy wrote an article said he's not overpowered. He's got 1 million counters, and in high level play, nobody likes him. Like people who are really good at the game are like, Bastion's nothing. What are you complaining about?
You lose all flexibility.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more important than flexibility.
Yeah. So they're like, what's the big deal? And he's like, no, it's not that he's overpowered. It's that he's boring.
Yeah.
He's one dimensional. He brings nothing to the game that's really interesting. He's a noob cannon.
And that's an interesting, and that goes to the point I was talking about in the first time I think we talked about this, which was the one guy. That guy is in Dota, but his name is Sniper, and I hate him. But that's exactly the deal with Sniper. He's a one-trick pony. He just stands there and he just shoots, and it's all passive. Like you're not like doing combos of moves. You're just standing there and you just stand in the back and shoot, and that's all you can do, and it's pretty boring.
Yeah.
But to say though, I play Bastion. I guess you can say a good chunk. I usually because of the fact that if I'm on defense, and all I literally need is like a Reinhardt protecting me or like someone healing me or something, I can do so much damage so quickly that I yes, it is one dimensional. You lose your mobility, but you get rid of that mobility for so much damage that you can do in so little time. I record my video games, and I saw a Roadhog lose 600 points of health in 1 second because he went in front of a Bastion that didn't even know that the Bastion was there. And I even looked. I was like, "Is that literally 1 second?" And it was
pretty quick. Yeah,
and that's the only way that character would even be remotely effective is if he could put out that kind of damage. Because what you just described is a massive handicap to the team unless that 1 point he's protecting is hyper important and the other team doesn't do anything to counter him. Because you just described a scenario where you took 3 people, you took half the other team to do that amount of damage to the other effectively. You needed somebody to shield him, somebody to heal him, and you needed to be in the right position. If you don't have any of those things and you have one person on the other team playing Genji or Tracer or Junkrat, they can wipe that guy out.
There's a name for this in esports. It's called a pub star, and it basically means your effectiveness relies entirely upon the disorganization of the other team and their inability to work together, and that's Bash. That sounds like Bastion.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the dev team was talking about too. They're like, yeah, he's like super powerful, but his whole back is a crit hit point. So like you can Tracer right behind him and just like spray him in the back and he's dead.
Yeah,
and
Tracer's awesome.
And in high level play, like
Tracer is the bane of my existence.
The people who like, internally they're testers, and like the people who know the game inside and out is like they freaking never pick that guy. Like he's just like ineffective at high level play. Everybody, they see him, they're like, oh sweet, free kill.
Yeah.
But at low level play and people who don't know how to counter him, or if somebody just like tries to run in front of him with like Winston or Roadhog, who's a giant target and can't move effectively and has like no evade moves or like counter to that, like they're gonna get cut down. But that's what he exists. He exists to cut down those characters when they're unawares. But the second you're aware, if you run back around that corner right out in front of him again, that's on you.
Yeah, I do get a lot of surprise kills when it comes to like Bastion, because
they're only surprise kills. Otherwise, people are dumb.
Yeah.
Well, it's like because yesterday I can't remember. It was like King's Row, I think it was the map, and there was the point, and then after that there's the payload. But I got all the way in the back. I was Bastion, like 5 people were in the point. People were, they were about to win, and I'm just walking out of the house behind them, and my teammates are freaking out, like, get in the point, and I'm like, guys, I got it. I went to the turret mode, and I just mowed everyone down, and they were just gone in literally 5 seconds. But because of how powerful he is, and yeah, he has that surprise kill, he has that, but that just wins you games. And I feel like he shouldn't be able to do that much damage so quickly. And like you're saying, Tracer can get behind him. Like maybe I've just been playing against bad Tracers, but Tracer is not a problem for me when I'm Bastion because of how fast you can turn in the turret.
But again, all it takes is a Tracer and anybody else to kill you, because a Tracer just dodges around while you try to shoot Tracer and then somebody else kills you. Like, it's...
Well, you can say
all
that
about
about all
organization.
characters then.
And I guess what I'm saying is
2 versus...
No,
like,
because
2
not
or
everybody
3,
else
no.
is stationary like that.
no, yeah, it's you. Everybody else can run around. They've
Yeah.
got different moves to like counter, against
Reposition
things.
themselves and stuff.
Reposition.
Yeah,
he's
like-
only powerful when he's stationary.
Yeah.
When he's running around, he's pretty weak. He's
Yeah.
really only brings anything to bear. And then once he's stationary, he's locked into place, and his entire backside is a giant double damage crit hit zone. His entire back. Like,
So, yeah, you
it's set
turn
up
around
that
to
way on
shoot Tracer,
purpose.
and now...
So if you come up,
either
get
Tracer's
him.
behind you shooting you, or you're looking at Tracer and the other team's behind you. It's one
Or
of
if
the
you're
two.
Junkrat and he's around the corner, you bank a grenade off the wall and it hits him in the back, and in one grenade he's dead.
Yeah.
Like, and you can spray a whole room full of them off the wall before he knows you're even there. And he doesn't. And he's only effective on line of sight. So characters who can kill you without line of sight, like Junkrat, you have no counter unless you get up and run away.
It's not even a fight. Yeah,
It's
you
not
just
even
get
a
blowed
fight.
up.
So it's again, like, everything has a counter. If Bastion, I still get annoyed by him because I think he's stupid and boring.
Yeah,
but
for
just
sure.
we just rattled
Yeah.
off like 10 counters to him, and the only reason that he even exists in the game as he is because he can put out that amount of power.
Yeah.
Initially, I guess he did the same amount of damage, but his accuracy sprayed a lot. In the minigun turret mode, he had like a really wide like cone of fire that was kind of just like, your typical heavy weapons guy from Team Fortress, where it kind of just sprayed a cone of things. So at
I feel
distance,
like that would be worse. Like,
at
that
distance,
makes
it
him
really-
more OP, maybe.
it made they made him stronger by tightening his beam of fire,
Interesting.
because he was at that level, like the top tier guys like wouldn't even consider him because
Hmm.
he was useless at range, and it took so much to protect him, and he couldn't move, and he could
that's
only
the
be in
thing.
one spot.
It is important to remember there are situations in the highest level of play where he's going to make sense.
Right, like
though
right at the end, like the payload's about to get scored.
Exact-
You're
yeah.
coming
Yeah.
out of the zone. You need a quick way to kind of lock down a quick spot, and
Yeah.
you're running out the door, and you jump into turret mode. You're going to get some kills.
Yeah.
If it's mid game and you try to pull that, and they don't counter you,
Yeah.
like you shouldn't be able to survive there long. Like if you're playing against a halfway decent team, like you're going to have to at least get up and reposition to try to do any damage. Like if you just sit still, you're done for.
Yeah.
I mean, the sitting still guarding a spot is really supposed to be for Torbjorn, like turret style, which allows him to kind of spread out, and that's where it makes him a little bit more effective. Even though he doesn't do the amount of damage Bastion does, it allows him to be kind of in two places at one time and react to other scenarios while he's putting out armor, while he's putting out other. In a lot of scenarios, Torbjorn's way more useful than a Bastion because he can kind of cover his zone and support his teammates and also do damage with his own weapon. And if I'm playing D, and I see people coming out the gate, I'd almost rather see him than Bastion on like my squad if people know what they're doing.
Yeah, like now that you do say that, when I do play Bastion, I usually only ever pick him if it's in the beginning, so I can get quick kills, or at the end where I actually do need to get rid of a lot of people, because they're just pushing, and I have either a team that doesn't know what they're doing, or B, a team that isn't putting out enough damage to get rid of them.
So here's another kind of thing that I don't want to just talk about Overwatch all day.
Yeah, I was about to make a comment.
yeah,
like,
but
we
we-
were coming
so
for
one-
a podcast.
one-
Didn't talk about Overwatch or the wrong
Well, it was just last time, and then today, and then we're gonna
and
move on.
today,
And
really,
okay, the
and
next
next
one.
week, and the week after.
Well,
that.
so one of the things we were also talking about in the regards of like you need to kind of switch to adapt. There's another kind of meta game going on where when you say like I need a really quick, like I need to clear characters or whatever, I won a round. I think it was Kings Road. The other team was really close to the payload, and I had been playing Mckee for a little while, and I considered switching to like a more defensive character right at the end, but I had my ultimate. So I did not switch, because if you switch your character, you give up your ult. And so I had already charged my ult, and I came out the gate, and I basically high-nooned half the team, and I finished off the other half with like straight up just like gunplay.
And it's worth mentioning how that works, which is basically that through participation, you build your access to your ult. So
yeah, right. So if you're on objective, it builds. If you do damage, it builds. They used to have a system where if you took damage, it built, and they changed it. They took it out because it made people.
You could just death rush in and then get your ult, and
It was encouraging people to get blasted,
Yep.
and people are also like playing tank characters that would just run out, eat a bunch of damage, and then ask people to heal them, and then
Yeah,
run
that's
out
what I was
run
thinking.
out and eat more damage just to
Yeah.
build alt charge all day. And there's like they thought that was just stupid.
Yeah.
So they just completely took that whole thing out, which I think is a good design decision, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's like that sounds like it could be a valid sort of mechanic, but I think the game would probably be stronger without
Right.
it.
So you have other characters where, you know,
Clearly
it might
was.
not be the right one for like the right thing is somebody's coming out the gate as Hanzo and your team's about to lose, but you have your ultimate and you can kind of blast it down the hallway and wipe out those characters even more effectively and consistently than we're coming out there as a Bastion. You know, you wouldn't you want to keep your ult charge to pull that move as opposed to making a quick switch. So I've definitely been in positions where it's like, all right, this isn't quite the right character for the scenario, but they are.
What the ultimate is.
But they are if I use my special. So I'm going to keep my special, and then if I die again, then I'll switch. I'll use it, and then if I die again, I'm switching.
Yeah.
And so it kind of encourages another kind of way of play. And I'm also interested to see how people just learn how to stack them. We had a game the other day where with Zarya, she has an ult that kind of pulls everybody into like a spot, and so we had a character who had that, and another person, Pismarov, was playing, and he had Hanzo, and he had his ult, and there was only like 30 seconds left in the round, and I'm like, shoot the ult at the point, do it now, and he's just like, no, Zarya, she's got her ultimate, she's gonna throw it on the point, suck them all together, and I'll kill the whole team in one go.
Yeah.
And she never threw his, so he
Yeah.
never used his, and I was
Yeah.
like, damn it, you could have just taken at least half of them. But
But-
then he's like, but no, it was her fault because she
It
never
is
did
her
it.
fault.
And I'm not saying that he's wrong, but I'm saying it because there's another level of play as people kind of figure out how some of these things can be combined into like the
Synergies.
ultimate.
Yeah.
And I think that comes right out of MOBAs as well, where like
Yep.
you could get certain characters that like synergize their thing. You know, if you have a character that can pull everybody into a tight thing, and then a character who can wipe out an area, then if you use those
So-
together, you can basically wipe the
and
team.
it definitely goes back to that whole, like, if you have a group of people, whether they're on like voice chat together or if you just have a bunch of people who know like the mechanics of the game, like you get a really strong team together.
True. If that Zarya was in our voice chat, we would like use your damn ultimate.
There's so there's a Dota series on YouTube called Fails of the Week. And I'm in one of the episodes. What happened
do?
is it basically what John is talking about is what happened.
Oh.
My team was kind of losing. We were kind of coming back, so we're like, last ditch effort. There's a thing you can do, and it's called smoking, which is you just like use the item. Puff of smoke goes over your team, and you're not quite invisible, but you can't be seen by wards, and another player can't see you unless they're very close to you. And then once that happens, it removes the buff, and you're just visible, and you're caught out, basically. So we're like kind of losing. We're like, all right, smokes can turn a game. You know, you pull off a good smoke gank with your team, you can get a big advantage. So our team got together, and we smoked. We're all invisible. All right, let's go. We're going to the other side. Cross the river. Come up these stairs, and there's only two characters standing there versus our whole team, but one of them has the ult that you throw down and it pulls you all together. The other one had the ult that just rains damage. So we came out and they turned and they just like looked at us. And the guy dropped the ult, pull us all together, and then the other guy dropped his ult. We all died. And, like nobody said anything. We just sat there.
It's like no way that just happened.
Yeah, we were just like, it was just like, And it was funny. My friend's like, dude, we're in fails. I'm like, I know what we did. I know what this is already.
So actually, I want to use that as a segue because that's friggin' funny. Into talking a little bit about something that you brought up earlier is use of comedy in games, and it's not an easy thing to pull off. Basically, comedy relies a lot on surprise and timing. And the reason that movies and TV shows and like stand-up can deliver it consistently is because they have full control over exactly the beats of like, this gets said, pause, this. But you give that up when you play a game a lot of times where you have somebody interacting with it, or they walk away, or they don't look at it right, or if it's not a cutscene, which is essentially just a movie. How do you actually get laughs out of a game consistently? There's games that pull it off by kind of almost sidestepping it, and I'll throw out Portal as an example. It's a very funny game. Portal and Portal 2 are both very funny, but a big part about it is that it kind of happens without you. It's very passive.
It's on rails. Yeah.
It's not a uniquely video game
Or dynamic
way of
rather,
delivering
yeah.
comedy.
Exactly.
So I have I don't know, what do you guys think? What games do you guys think do comedy well? I've got one.
I mean,
I'll while you guys think on that, I'll give you a second to think by talking about Portal a little bit, and just the way that they do it through really quality voice acting and writing. Also kind of like with the tone and setting, especially with the original Portal. With Portal 2, it wasn't as much of like surprise and whatnot. It was more just like, look at these interesting things that we did, and like we have these really strong, like J.K. Simmons and the woman who plays Gladys, and like they got really strong voice actors and really quality writing. And the guy who was Stephen Merchant, who played Wheatley, like you basically got AAA Hollywood talent to come in and knock out some quality like one-liners and whatnot, but it's played at you. It's independent of what you're doing in the game. You can be solving a puzzle and the audio is just playing.
Yeah.
It's literally just like start the clip and it just goes. Like
Yeah, like
that
you reach an area and it's like, all right, now we're gonna say this.
That
Right.
really
Yeah.
genius Cave Johnson rant about the lemons, which plays if you walk past the portrait outside in the game space, it'll play the rant at you.
Oh, really?
It's totally.
I didn't know it did that.
Yeah, it's like one of those Billy Bass things. You walk by it, it'll play the lemons rant.
That's pretty good.
Dear
should put that as the
everyone's
portrait
listening
of.
to this
Put that, like, in the
podcast, please
door.
go to that game space and buy
so-
a portrait.
So there's a portrait of Cave Johnson on the wall here, but it's totally unreal. It's just like an audio clip, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just play clip here. You go into this bounty box, you start this level, just start the track, and so that's like listening to a comedy album or whatever. The beats are all there because they're pre-recorded. It takes no player interaction. It totally comes at you passively, like you're watching a movie or a TV show, and it has very little, if not nothing, to do with the player and what they're doing.
Yeah, and this sort of idea of like timing things with what the player is doing, like that what you were saying earlier about like maybe the player isn't looking in the right direction at the right time or things like that, and that happens a lot with like sort of jump scary horror games where like something will happen, the player's looking in the complete opposite direction. They're like, whoa, I heard like the spooky music but I didn't see anything. They they've completely missed like what the game was trying to get you to look at, because like you can't predict what someone's going to do inside of a game, which is why I think like a lot of games do use that sort of sidestepping shortcut where they'll just like play the pre-recorded pre-set out audio at you.
Sorry, I feel like shows like Arrested Development and 30 Rock are a good model for video games to pull from, because it's not overt in those shows, right? Sorry if I was away from my mic for a little bit. Like there are small details that you have to really pay attention to and find, and maybe you won't even notice them the first time, because it is so hard to get that just regular setup.
What I've seen work in games is actually the opposite, which is like Surgeon Simulator or Octodad, where the game is
Those are so silly.
basically unplayable.
just ridiculous.
Goat Simulator.
Goat
Yes.
like
Goat
right, just
Simulator.
It's hard
absurdity.
to say that Goat Simulator isn't a comedy game.
It only is.
That's what I'm
I
saying.
mean, all three of
Yeah.
those games basically only exist as comedy.
I take
Could be
issue.
just because like they're so ridiculous that the comedy just sort of generates from like,
Right.
playing the game.
Yeah.
So I'm a comedy writer, which
Yeah.
sounds so stupid when I say it out loud.
I am not. I am a writer, and I struggle so
yeah,
hard. Continue
it's-
talking, please.
Yeah,
Maybe you should listen.
Yeah.
Maybe I should.
No. If you struggle, do comedy, because that's what it is. Just struggling. Anyway, what I draw from is a lot of improv experience, and there's a tenet in this book, Truth in Comedy, which was written in part by Del Close, who like basically taught everyone who's on SNL or ever has been on SNL that comedy should be played straight, and that's really the only way to have mature comedies.
Yeah.
Goat Simulator, I think gets closer
That
to
applies
it.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't think that Surgeon Simulator or what was the other one I was thinking of? Octodad do that. Like,
Horrible
they're-
games.
They're horrible.
They're funny, but they're horrible games.
Like,
yeah.
So, like, it's not realistic.
No.
And a lot of, like, the book I was referencing is called Truth in Comedy. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's funny to see things that are real.
Yeah.
So that's really what I want to see more of. I want
Yeah.
to see them start leaning in that direction.
And that also exists, but that's almost always incidental, right? It's like when you do some weird shit in Fallout, right? I don't know. You just like put the kite somebody somewhere they're not supposed to be, and like just kind of arrange things so that it's really funny, but it's not at all part of the.
I mean, that's part
game.
of what you did to do that. Like, that's like an interactive thing that's like a silly thing plays out. Like, I guess Fallout is not necessarily a bad example of what you're kind of talking about. And I'll even extend it to Left 4 Dead in like the safe rooms. So like, there's things in like environmentally in those games that can be very funny, but they're not really overt. They're not played at you. They're like things you find in the environment when you're looking around.
I have a screenshot from Fallout New Vegas that says strategic nuclear moose. That's probably one of my favorite things in the world.
Yeah, there's lots of really cool Easter eggs in Fallout, like all over the place. That environment is like just chock full of details that are just like, if you give a shit to look like around corners and into certain things, like the dev team just sprinkled things that amused themselves all throughout the game.
Yeah.
And I point to the Left 4 Dead safe rooms as just like a really kind of blatant example almost, because there's not a lot in between it, but like at the safe rooms you can see like graffiti that people put on the walls from like previous, and some of it's like kind of touching and sad, and other things are just like played for laughs, just like interesting environmental details, but they feel very real. They feel like,
it's good banter,
like bathroom graffiti style, like, so they're, usually it's stupid, but sometimes there's a gem in there somewhere.
Right. Yeah. That's a really good example, and I'm trying to think. Well, actually, who's done this probably better than anyone, or is definitely one of the greats, is old LucasArts point and clicks. Those have a great sense of humor. I mean, they are basically comedy games.
Sam and Max is straight up a comedy game. Like the other ones are kind of like incidentally comedy. Like Sam and Max was written as like a comedy. Like they're like almost the stereotypical comedy duo. You got like the big one and like the little rambunctious one. And it lends itself. Those games lend themselves to novel interactions as well. Like,
so speaking of that, I've been playing Day of the Tentacle. I got that.
That's also a hilarious game sometimes.
I'm not that far into it, but I wanted to more remark on. Sorry for the can noise. I wanted to more remark on how interesting the remastered version is, because on the fly you can switch between the classic mode and the remastered mode, which is much more simplified. Because the classic modes has like, it was that era in adventure games where they hadn't like pruned down your interactions, so the bottom of the screen would be like touch, smell, push, pull. Just like redundant action and way too many. But then with the remastered, they pulled a lot of the redundant and unnecessary interactions out and streamlined it. But you can flip between them on the fly, which is incredible. Really cool, like fun to see. Also, there's developers commentary, which is really interesting stuff. I'm trying to. I want to play the game, and see. I always think I'll play the game and go back and play it with commentary. And no matter how good the game is, I never do.
I've never really watched a movie with commentary almost ever, except for with the exception of. I remember when my buddies got 28 Days Later. We watched the movie, and then like a couple of days later, we watched it again with the director's commentary.
Probably really interesting.
And like what was really interesting about it, and my main takeaway, was they had no fucking clue what they were doing.
Right.
They just totally made shit up like on the fly. They were like, okay, so we came up with the idea for this character. We thought it'd be cool if he was like locked in this room. So we got this guy and he's locked in this room, right? And then so we're doing this thing and he's talking to him and we're just like, you know what? This is getting kind of boring. Zombie attack. Like they just like literally like 9 times out of 10, like the action in that movie came out of like, okay, so these guys were talking and then we're like, you know what? This is taking a little long. Zombie attack. Like it's like they totally just like shooting from the hip, and it was just like, wow, these guys had no clue. They had no plan. And if they had a plan, it fell apart immediately, and they just kind of went with whatever they could put together.
It's a pretty good zombie movie.
Yeah, a lot of people point to it and be like, oh, this is like really well put together and whatnot. It's like, no, they were kind of just like having coffee in the morning like, this is boring. I think it's time for a zombie attack.
You think of what I'm thinking? And they both say at the same time, zombie attack.
Yeah.
80s music plays.
Just a sec.
But it's like it's thrown in there as almost like nonchalantly, like as like a non sequitur. It's like, okay, so they have like the storyboards up and they're like, okay, so this scene goes into this scene and then we throw in a zombie attack. And then this scene goes into this scene and this was taking a little long, so zombie attack. And then it's like totally just like, oh yeah, like just waving of the hand, like a zombie attack goes here, zombie attack goes there.
Before we get we are off the rails. But is there more? Anybody want to say more about comedy in games? I mean, it's back to what we were.
A question for you: like, what are some games that you've found that do have really good comedy as a comedy writer?
So I was thinking of a few interesting examples on the way here. Saints Row 4 does a thing where they include glitches. Like you're playing in this computer system and like you're supposed to, it's like the Matrix and you're trying to break the Matrix by glitching it out. And as you play through, like people have big heads, your gun will turn into like a penis gun, and all these different things.
I think we actually talked about this game last week and its sense of humor.
And it's I think it's kind of similar to like the Surgeon Simulator wacky stuff.
Yeah.
I think actually Fallout is a really good example for what you guys are saying, and also this might sound morbid, but that slow kill cam can sometimes have
it has
fabulous results.
Actually, I saw one from Fallout 4. Oh God, what happened? Somebody like, I don't know, somebody got like stabbed in the butt, and it was a crit. They like exploded, and it was pretty funny.
One of my screenshots from I think it was Skyrim is this guy that I killed, this like spread out like on a staircase, like legs completely apart, and he's like hand is like against his chin in this sort of like sort of way, and I was just like, oh my God, this is great. Like,
I know you want this.
I killed somebody the other day in Fallout, and the way they landed, like they looked still alive, and they were looking right at me, and I was like, bats, and it wouldn't do it. And then I slowly crept around, saw he was there, like, oh, thank God. But two other moments that stick out to me: Super Smash Bros. Brawl, playing the final boss for 3 hours, and then this is like a circumstantial thing as well, and eventually just killing him with Diddy Kong's peanut gun after all that build up. And also there's a moment with you, and I think comedy is very much shared experience, and like that's why laugh tracks exist. I think also to communicate when you need to laugh.
I'm the you he speaks of.
Yes. Greg is the you.
Those are the worst. Those are dead people laughing.
Isn't it? That's so weird to think about. Like almost all of them are dead.
Wait, what?
Because like the laugh tracks are pre-recorded.
Oh, right.
Those canned laughters were like, they were recorded in like the 50s. Everybody you hear laughing on like freaking Friends, they're all dead.
You just blew my mind.
For ruining everything.
And
I'm just sad at every comedy now.
You should be. If you're watching a show that's got a laugh track and it's not Seinfeld, you should be sad.
That's actually a good point. And that was a live audience. That wasn't a laugh track.
They did supplement with some.
They sweetened is what they call it.
All right, nerds. What else?
Doing a video game podcast. But we were playing Left 4 Dead 2 with one of your friends online.
Oh yeah, I know you.
And we had just all coincidentally downloaded the same mod. Didn't do it on purpose. So we get down into the swamp in Dark Carnival, and basically at the exact same time, all three of us go, dude, I just got the sickest mod. Oh no way, I just got the sickest mod. And then All Star starts playing.
Yeah.
And that replaced tank music.
Yeah.
And Shrek just comes out.
I've seen this mod. It's a great fucking mod.
Like, it's a great mod on its own, but having the shared experience
of all of us doing that unexpectedly. Also, that mod ruins the atmosphere of that game.
Well, much in like the Macho Man mod. It's hilarious, but it ruins the any type of tension with a dragon in Skyrim.
It's amazing.
Well,
so I want to just tag onto that, because this didn't happen to me, but I was just talking to somebody about Left 4 Dead the other day, and they went to a local LAN center, Game On up the road. They're really cool guys over there and support of what we do, so you should check them out. They're over on Delaware, but they have a LAN center over there where they have all the PCs and everything else set up, and you can go in and just rent time on it and play together with people if you don't have a gaming PC or a place to LAN it, which we're doing here next week. So maybe if you hear this by then, come to the LAN party. So they went over there and they went to go play Left 4 Dead together, and because they just wanted to play a quick game, and they have fired it up and they started playing, and there's 4 of them playing together, and there's like, oh, there's a wave coming over here, like turn around, and it's like, and one of the guys is playing for a little while and is just like, are you guys seeing all these chickens and Teletubbies? And they're like, no. And he's like, I'm shooting chickens and Teletubbies. It's like, what's going on over there? And that computer at the LAN center had like 100 mods installed, and everybody else is playing vanilla. So just the separation of like they're all in the same game together, and one guy was seeing different stuff.
Oh,
that's pretty good. I mean, like games, like they can't be like I don't think they can only give you the tools for comedy to happen, right? Like they can't really.
And also things like when you talk about playing it straight, like we've talked about this before because this is one of the games that really kind of, I guess, blew my mind when they came out with it. It took them forever to come out, and when they finally had it out and it came out, the game itself, the gameplay itself was kind of meh, but the stories were crazy, and what they did with the game was really ingenious, and I haven't really seen it done well since then. It's Eternal Darkness.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
Eternal Darkness has a Eternal Darkness.
You might have told this story last week, but
I have told it.
It's a good
before,
story.
but and I'm not going to go too deep into it because I already told it. But basically, the gist of the game was there's a sanity meter in the game. Every character has a certain amount of sanity, and as you encounter these enemies, which are kind of like zombies, ghouls, kind of crazy, like otherworldly, Lovecraftian demons and that kind of stuff. Every time you come across one, you lose a little bit of sanity, and if you don't drink alcohol or like compensate, like certain characters have different ways of coping. If you don't cope, then you can lose your mind, and as you start losing your mind, the game does lots of crazy stuff in game where you're seeing all types of crap that isn't there. But it also breaks the fourth wall and how it starts screwing with you. It starts making you think the volume on your TV is going up, or you're switching to video one. And so last week I told the story about my buddy Dom who was playing, and he went to save his game, and it said deleting all save games, and he said no, and it just shows him deleting all the save games, and he started panicking, and then it flashes there. So I just told that story without any funniness to it because I've already told it.
Right.
But the point is, like, that's like a sanity. You're losing your mind. Like, it's supposed to like mess with you.
Yeah.
But I look at that as like comedy. Like those things when they happen, like it's messing with you, and when it gets you, and like it made the story of him panicking and like worried about me coming home and seeing all my save games wiped. And then when it flashes, and the relief that came to him telling me that story was funnier than anything that I had done. Like,
and I was playing Payday 2 last night with a couple of friends, and like one of the things they do is like if you're doing a stealth thing and you kill a guard, you have to answer his comm, and just like the funny shit that the characters say, like when you do that. Like I was walking next to one of my friends, and I forget what his character said, but I was just like, did your character just say like what I think she just said? And he was like, yeah, they do that. So I just started playing the game. I was like, oh my god, this is so random. Like I'm trying to do this stuff.
It's okay. We're all okay down here. How are you?
It was so weird. I don't remember what she said, but it was great.
I think we should talk a little bit about Stanley Parable, because I think
But again,
a collective eyebrow raise.
I mean, that game is again like kind of what we talked about in Portal, where a comedy is on rails, and
it's
well,
not.
you know, actually,
But you choose what
I
comedy
haven't
you
really
get.
played it. I somewhat retract my statement. I've seen some of it played.
It's like on rails, but you choose what comedy you get.
What rail
That's
you
true,
go on.
and I
Your
think
rail?
the order of events kind of matters, like the way you play the game. Like it's not like every time you go in this room, it tells this joke, regardless of what you've done. I think there's a lot of added. Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good point. That's a good
and just because
point.
it presents certain options to you
Yeah.
doesn't mean you have to take those options.
Yeah.
Like there's this one section that I think is really great, where like it's like you come up on a blue door and a red door, and the narrator says Stanley took the red door, and you can go in the blue door, and then he sets you again. He's like, he took the red door,
Right.
go in the blue door again, and then he says, maybe you didn't hear me. The red door.
Yeah, that's
And there's no blue door anymore.
Yeah.
But if you turn around, there's a blue door
That's funny.
that you came in through.
That's funny.
And
that is good. That's a really good example. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like actually the best example probably of all these games of like comedy in games. Yeah.
And
Well,
like it's,
in how it relates to interacting with like
Exactly.
the player, and like there's actually some agency because there's some play back
doing
and forth.
in a way that is games are good at doing. Yeah.
So one of the things right at the beginning of Portal 2, if you've played that, the game kicks off and you
I
kind
beat
of
it.
awake from your
I've
beat it in
almost
one
every
hit.
single achievement. I think I'm missing two, and they're like almost impossible.
So right in the beginning of the game, where like most games would have like a tutorial or whatever, right in the beginning of the game, it basically like the character comes in, you've been woken, you're gonna go do this thing, and on the screen there's a prompt that says press A to say apple.
Oh yeah.
And you hit A, and your character jumps because that's what happens in the game when you press A. And so it says press A to say apple, and you hit A, and your character jumps, and the little robot's just like, okay. I guess you're all there. Like and like the little things like that where it asks you to do a certain thing, and you think something's gonna happen, and they just there's surprise and timing involved again.
Yeah. This is neither of those things, but I was wandering around Just Cause 2 a while ago. I was just going through my Steam snapshots. And there is, I don't know if it's like everywhere on the map, because I think I've only seen it in like one village. There's a soda machine you can walk up to, and it says Leet Chips on it. I was just like, oh god. I said that to a couple of my friends. They were like, are you fucking kidding me right now?
Like L33T?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of the games go deep with some of their trying to go out of their way to not be brand sued.
Yeah.
They can't just put Doritos and Mountain Dew in it.
right.
It's 1337 chips. I was just like, oh my fucking god.
I guess one of the things that I kind of picked up on a lot of what we just discussed was a lot of the comedy that comes out of the games is almost in the stories that come out of the games as they are played. It's almost like
That's
the things
biggest,
that you recognize as funny, they're not funny in and of themselves as opposed to in related to something else
or how
like
you
a story
saw it,
tell.
your
That's
perspective
kind of
on it.
If anyone watches or listens to Yahtzee's game critiques, like when he did Skyrim, he was talking about like the water cooler effect, and like you'll come in and like talk to people who've played the game, and you're like, oh, I had like this crazy thing happen. Like it's like what you're talking about. Like it's sort of again like going back to shared experience. Like I had this X, Y, and Z happen, and like it was funny.
Yeah, there's no like. I mean, it's like. I don't know, comedy sandbox. That's what is really hard to do, I think.
Yeah, so it's like certain things, I guess what I'm getting at is like certain things aren't funny in and of themselves, but when I start telling you about my Fallout 4 playthrough and I'm like, yeah, my character's an alcoholic and
Yeah, it's like what you bring to it.
And other people will find that funny. Like, it's not necessarily like, hey, look at this game, the main character is this way and he acts as this. It's more just like, this is what I did with it. Isn't that... That's different from what you did. Maybe it's not interesting. Maybe it's not funny to you or whatever. Yeah. But like
my Fallout 4 character isn't quite an alcoholic, but she collects alcohol religiously. So I just have a cabinet that is stuffed with every single alcohol I picked up in that game.
And that's an interesting thing where as you flesh out your characters,
today.
you kind of come up with your own like self-imposed rules.
Yeah.
Like I could cure my alcohol addiction in Fallout 4.
Right.
Or I could just make this part of the experience.
Right.
And like let it be part of the role play.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes to Noah's point again about how the best comedy is delivered seriously, I guess. Is that what you said? So, yeah, I mean, that's all delivered sort of like without interpretation. It just is, and it's funny.
Right, because alcoholism isn't funny.
No.
Like, as a topic.
Right.
But like, as one flaw in this character who has many flaws, and the world that has been crafted around himself by this character,
and the
like I can tell
that arise,
and the situation that arise because of this character has this flaw. Funny systems kind of ensue.
Yeah, and that's like a nice thing about games like that. Like going back to Skyrim, this wasn't a comedy experience, but I had been traveling with this one companion. I forget his name, but he was like a priest, so you couldn't marry him. And I'd gone I did try. It's very sad. But anyway, I'd gone into a cave I didn't know had like a Draugr Deathlord at the end or whatever. Or not a Deathlord, no. I haven't played Skyrim.
Spoiler
Something
alert.
hard.
But anyway, I managed to survive because I had like 500,000 health potions, but he ended up dying, so like I had like a burial for him like in the thing that he popped out of, and like I had gone into like the companions quest line after that, because my character motivation was literally like she was upset about like losing her companion, so like she joined like the companions, and like I just like powered through that quest line like as fast as I could as sort of a like my character's like feeling upset about like losing this friend, and then I ended up marrying like one of the companions at the end of the quest line. So it was like just sort of like what I'd brought to the game as the narrative for my character, and like it's that obviously isn't like a comedy example, but like I know exactly what you mean.
Right.
Like what you bring to the character often leads to the comedy in the game.
And that's part of the reason why I stopped trying to how I stopped caring and started to embrace the RPG, right? It's it's
Doctor Strange.
I tried to word that properly. I didn't quite nail it, but
I got you.
You got my where I was going for. I stopped worrying about it, and it's like when I used to play games like that, I'd be like, all right, this is the kind of character I want to build. How do I min-max him to make him the most bad, crazy bastard that's ever lived? He's the most powerful thing that anybody in this world has ever seen. That's boring.
Yeah.
Like, superhero characters are boring as hell. And as proof positive, the reason I kind of stopped playing Fallout 4 is once my character became so powerful that even on the hardest difficulty, I was just smoking things, like, without even trying. That's kind of when I stopped playing.
Yeah.
But by self-imposed kind of limitations on my character, he was super weak. He was addicted to alcohol. He had certain things that he had to do, like if there were certain areas, like he had to. There's certain, like, I always have to take a globe, no matter what else I'm carrying. Like, just weird little things that was like self-imposed rules, and the companions you take along and how I set them up. Like, oh, I'm gonna hook up with her, and she's gonna wear my power armor. I'm gonna spec her out for melee, and I give her like a giant sledgehammer, and I just watch her smash people, and and my character can't do any of the these. Those became way more interesting than just being like, how do I become the overlord of this whole world? Well, at the end of the day, like any schmuck can become super powered in any of these RPGs if you play them long enough, but it doesn't mean they have any interesting stories to tell.
Yeah, and I know like a lot of people do things where they're like, oh, like my character's like scared of like this one thing, so like if they have to do a quest in like a certain area with X thing, they have to like bring someone along and like rely on like a companion or something to like get through it, because like their character's like scared and they have to run away or like whatever.
Right. So I noticed this directly in I had never played tabletop games my whole life. I had never played them, like Dungeons and Dragons, something I never cared about. I never really had an interest. I knew it was out there, but I never played it, never really had an interest in it. And recently some guys here were talking about like, no, it's actually really fun. You don't know what hasn't been done. And so there's a whole bunch of people that wanted to try it who hadn't played it before. So we started doing a game here every once in a while. And, so one of the things that I kind of took away from that was when you make your character, like there's all types of systems. First off, that every RPG, including Fallout and Skyrim and everything, have just ripped everything right out of this handbook. Like D&D,
wholesale.
they owe D&D 100% of their revenue, minus all the art content and cool things that they did with it after that. But anyway,
other than that, lazy devs.
Lazy devs copied tabletop. No, awesome. Yeah. But one of the things that I noticed directly on the character sheet, like when you make a character, it's got a big, bold, the whole section just for it is flaws. And you have to pick some flaws for your character. You can't just be like, I'm the most powerful thing that this world has ever seen. I one kill everything, and everybody on my team has to bow before me because I'm the best. It's like, no, that's zero interesting. Like, everybody has to have certain flaws they kind of bring to the table, and some of the people that I played with came up with some pretty interesting ones. One of the guys we played with, his character was insane to the point where like he would see things in like our world, like literally like me sitting across the table from you, like in the D&D world. Like he kind of like was split between worlds, and so but in the D&D world we thought he was nuts. And he couldn't really talk, and he stored meat in his hair, and every once in a while he'd pull meat out of his hair and munch on it. And my character was kind of like a thief character who was obsessed with backflipping whenever he could, like every once in a while.
Didn't you have
like
because I rolled a backflip, didn't you?
I spec'd my character like as like a joke. I was like, is acrobatics like even worth anything? They're like, everything's worth something like if you use it in the right opportunity. I'm like, screw it, I'm gonna give this guy mad acrobatics just to see what I can do with it. So as part of my flaws, I'm like, he's got like a nervous tick where like every once in a while he's just got a backflip, and also if he sees like something of value, like he has to take it, like he's got it, like he becomes obsessed with it or whatever. So we were in different scenarios where like this room is coming down around us, and the world's about to explode in this area, and I know there's like something of value downstairs, and they're like, we're all running out the back. I'm like, I gotta go downstairs. They're like, you're gonna die, you can't do that. I'm like, I got to, man. You don't understand. And like they had to like drag me out, and and other scenarios where like people are talking too long, and I was like, I backflip, and the DM was like, roll for a successful backflip. And every once in a while, like I'd roll like a 2, and he's like, so you try to backflip and smack your head on the table, and like everybody laughs at you, and like, and so it's just like, but like those flaws like lend it, and sometimes in battle even I'd be like in the middle of a turn, I'd be like, I got a backflip, it's just like throwing a backflip, and like it led to kind of like these silly ass moments that wouldn't have come if my character was perfect or whatever. I lost 2 health points because I cracked my head on the table in the kitchen because these 2 guys were talking too long and I got bored.
So that's kind of along with like playing it straight, but like one thing that I think a lot, like the goat simulators and whatnot, do wrong is that there's a lot of ironic detachment.
There's a lot of meta. Yeah.
Yeah, they try to take you out of it. But when you're like role playing like that, when you're in the game, like when I play Fallout, I like try to round this up.
No, you
make
were
sure that
supposed to ignore that, but go ahead.
I'm being real right now. I'm really committed to
is
this
this comedy?
This is comedy
All
right now. I'm gonna add a laugh track later.
They're all done.
So
Moment of silence for the laugh track.
but like you're committed to that character in the moment. It's not, oh man, that's so weird that I'm getting this globe. It's like I have to get this globe, and if there is not room in my inventory, I have to find a way.
Yeah.
I'm gonna dump this minigun. That's like 5 globes. Like,
Yeah.
But like you're actually like engaged, and it's
Right. The
difficult
joke
to do.
isn't like, isn't it stupid that like video games are like this, you know, which is just like not actual comedy. Like that's just you not being able to think of comedy, and so you just
shit on it.
Yeah, you just like you think you're being. Yeah, I really don't like it.
I saw I was going through a copy of the Game Informer magazine the other day, and it was I don't remember what game it was image from, but there was like people walking through this space, and there was those little like pamphlets that you sometimes like see in various locations. I think it might have been like a church or something, and one of them was like, God can save you too, or something like that. One said like why video games are evil, and then one was like improper thoughts, like the ultimate solution. There was another one that I thought
These
was
all sound like great
hysterical.
pamphlets. Like these
Yeah,
are like all my
and
favorite
like,
things.
I will bring in this image because it was so amazing.
I don't know what I would do if I didn't do any of that.
But like I like there were just 4 of them, and I started cracking up when I saw this because it was just so amazing, like,
Yeah.
perfect, and like just like the right amount of like satire about games, but not
Right.
like over the top. And,
Right, there's a
too
difference.
much, and-
Yeah, like the thing is like the difference is like satire is sort of like you kind of turn an argument against itself, right? Whereas meta is like I always see it as okay, the trope here is X. I don't know what else to do, so I'm gonna do X, but I'm gonna act like I'm smarter than doing X, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think those are definitely like neighbors, but there's a big difference to me. Anyways, bye.
That hard out though.
I think that about wraps it up. Thanks, guys, for coming through. As always, you can find us over here at the space. We're
Games
about
we
to
talked
do-
about.
It's games we talked about with
Overwatch.
Cuphead. Cuphead. It's got it's beautiful art. Might be racist. We don't know.
Probably. It's
We don't know.
definitely racist.
Maybe
You heard it here first.
Sorry, Cuphead guys who were listening.
Should have made your game racist. It's not my fault.
Overwatch. It's a really pretty great game with a lot of
Overtalked about?
different. Yeah, Overwatch is overtalked. I think
We've talked
we
about Overwatch more than Dark Souls. Just putting that out there.
Yeah.
Not yet. Historically, we got a lot of ground to cover there, and we talked about comedy in games and kind of how it's difficult to do it when you have to kind of give up some of your agency as somebody trying to be funny or having some funny moments when you kind of give over control to the player, and doing it either through environmental things or setting up scenarios by which then can be conveyed might be funny or interesting to some people.
And a smattering of game examples in that discussion.
Yeah,
All types of game. We talked about a lot of games.
A lot of games. Google
So
it.
we're about to set up for a VR meetup over here. We've got a Vive and a CV1 and a whole bunch of Oculus and Gear VR stuff. We're about to set up and have people come over and try them out.
Once a month.
We're going to be doing that once a month. Thanks. We got the LAN party coming up next week if this comes out before then. And we, as always, our whole schedule is up on meetup.com. Check us out on Twitter at Buff Gamespace, the Facebook page, the website, all that fun stuff. Pretty easy to find, Buffalo Gamespace. And thanks for the support, and we'll see you around.
Bye.